Ouvimos agora Ofir Hason, co-founder and CEO do CybergymIEC, com a apresentação Cyber Warfare as Part of Military Conflicts, the Israel-Hamas Conflict.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me and inviting me to this conference, beautiful conference, and thank you for Paldata and Paldata Consultancy, our partner here, that invited me to come here and to share with you some insights about the cybersecurity aspects of a military conflict, and specifically maybe in more details about the conflict that at the moment there is in the Middle East. Just a little bit of a background about myself and why I'm capable of why I'm actually here, can present some of those insights. So before I incorporated the CybergymIEC, which was 12 years ago, I worked for the Israeli security agency for almost 10 years in different aspects, different domains, but all of them were under the title of a security, either cybersecurity, offensive, defensive, intelligent technology, bilateral relationship, which we did quite a lot around the world. And it was like, I started like in ISA, the Israeli Security Agency, like 20 years ago, and I spent 10 years working around the clock, doing those kind of things. And what we discovered in the last year, that we got into a peak of all of these preparations that has been done in the last few decades in the Middle East, in Israel, and in other places. What everyone is seeing in the media around the world is the military conflict. You almost don't see the cybersecurity conflict that is happening either behind the scenes, either before and after. I'm going to take the 10 minutes that I have, which is very, very little time to talk about such a huge topic. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of everything, not a lot. It's a topic that can be discussed for days, not even for hours. But if there is a few things that I would like you guys to take from my presentations is the following. First of all, the cultural differences. The differences between a democratical countries and other countries, other regimes, what we allow to do and what they're allowed to do, what Portugal allowed to do versus Iran or versus China or versus North Korea, whatever you guys would like to choose. We have different engagement rules, and that's going to cause us a lot of problems when you work in a cyber domain. The second thing is that I would like you guys to think of is to try and to think like an intelligence. Think as an intelligent agent and not as a civilians. And I will show you some examples that you will understand what I mean, exactly what I mean, and why the mindset needs to be different. Not as a civilian, but as an intelligent agent. The third thing that I would like you guys to think of is the manpower. The capabilities, the skills, the knowledge, the experience that you guys have, either the shareholders, the C-level managers, everyone in your organizations, your suppliers, your chain of suppliers, everything. If you will understand what are their capabilities and what are their skills, and if they are capable to protect your organizations from cyber attacks, then you're in a very good situation. But in most likely, in most of the organizations, this is not the case. We have quite a lot of technologies, good technologies in the Western world, not just in Israel, and to come up with those technologies without having the right people in place, with the right skills, with the right capabilities, it's not worth a lot of. So I'm going to do, so those are the 3 or 4 main topics that it will be great if you guys just take that with you home and start thinking about those topics. So just put here 2 military conflicts that everyone knows about and everyone sees all over the news around the clock, 24/7 around the clock in the last few years. And the question mark that I left in that slide is saying, what is next? What is the next conflict, the military conflict right now? I'm not talking about even the cyber conflict that everyone here, that is the topic of this conference, but actually the military conflict. But one thing that is very, very common between the different topics is the pattern. There is a pattern behind the scenes of cybersecurity preparation, cybersecurity attacks preparation that has been done for decades. It's not years, it's not months, it's decades. It's more than 20, 30 years of preparations. And don't ask me about the pager operations because I have no idea and I don't know how long it takes to prepare it, and probably we will not know anything about it in the next 10 to 15 years. But the rest of the things actually takes a lot of time, either to prepare the attacks or to prepare the defense systems in the defense world. But those military conflicts, which there is a question mark about the next one, which I will talk about, everyone knows what it's going to be, but anyway, I'm going to mention that in the next few slides. But everyone is talking about the military, because you can see the tanks and you can see the airplanes and you can see the people that is being killed and being injured in both sides. But no one is talking about the cyber attacks that are happening behind the scenes. And this is a number, I know it's a huge number. I know you probably, half of you don't believe this number. But this is the number of the amount of the attacks that are happening in Israel for the last year. And it's by the Times, okay? It's not by me. It's a quote by the Times. The amount of the attacks that are happening in the cyber world, it's billions of attacks. Now, most of them are quite simple ones, right? It's lone wolves, what we are calling lone wolves. It's not a state or a nations that attack in Israel, but most of them is by lone wolves or individuals. But there are a lot of them which are in a very, I would say, comprehensive or complicated attacks that is being sponsored by terror groups, by state, by nations, and by other organizations that have resources to do it. And one very relevant question that Israel is asking ourselves, and I'm asking myself, and my colleagues back in Israel are asking themselves quite a lot, is our doctrine, the cybersecurity doctrine in Israel, failed on the 7th of October last year. Putting aside the military and putting aside everything that happened military-wise, but cybersecurity-wise, did we fail? Did the cybersecurity strategy of Israel failed? And I'm talking about a country that lives and breathes security. From the very first day that we burn until the last day that we die, we talk about security. So the questions that everyone is asking themselves is the cybersecurity doctrine failed? It's a question that probably will be discussed in the next few years to see if we did it right. I'm happy to say that there were a lot of attacks on Israel, which I'm going to show some examples. 99% of them failed, cybersecurity-wise. I'm not talking about the military one. The mindset behind the cybersecurity doctrine of Israel is intelligent. We think and we breathe intelligent all the time. So everything that we do is based on a mindset of an intelligent organization, unit, and so on. But still, it's a question mark that still we didn't have a discussion, so we didn't have a conclusions, and I probably will not have a conclusions in the next few years. I'm gonna say a few words about that slide because you guys already know it, and I don't have a lot of time. But the trend in cybersecurity becomes more and more complicated, more and more sophisticated. Specifically, and again, I'm going to mention that over and over again during the next 5 minutes, because of the cultural differences. Portugal and Israel and the rest of the Western world are democratical states, meaning that there are things that we cannot do and things that we can do. There are things that we are allowing our people to be part of, which makes us much more vulnerable than other countries. Social media is open in the Western world to everyone. I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, how much do I want. It's not the same in other places. A democratical values is something that we cherish. Even in an emergency situation, that makes us vulnerable in the cyber world. You cannot ignore it. I love social media. I have account in almost all of the social media platforms. That makes me vulnerable to go around with a cell phone, an Android cell phone, which have Facebook and TikTok and I don't have a TikTok, but Facebook and LinkedIn and WhatsApps or whatever, those kind of things, is actually makes me vulnerable. Now, multiple that by thousands, by 10,000s, by millions, you make the nation vulnerable. Now, you cannot block it on the 8th of October. It doesn't work like that in democratic countries. But in other countries, dictations countries, you can block it, make them less vulnerable than you guys, than us, right, than the democratic world. So the cultural differences is crucial. The regime's differences is crucial. The way that I am defending the country is different than the Japanese and different than South Korea and it's different than the Portuguese. The same goes when I am attacking someone else. I will attack him differently than others. The cultural differences is a core element that needs to be discussed, that needs to be aware of when you build a cyber defense strategy. That means that you need to define who are your enemies. That means that you need to have an intelligence on your enemies. You need to have a strategy which is not just based on the best technologies that you can buy or the best technologies that you can develop. It's based on a lot of other aspects that you need to come up with and think of. I'm going to give some examples, but this is what we see. But this is actually what's happening behind the scenes or what is going on around the clock, everywhere, and it doesn't matter if you are a peaceful country or a country that doesn't, that doesn't part of the Western world, or it's things different, or it's part of a different regimes and so on. Everyone is dealing with cybersecurity, offensively, defensively, intelligent. Everyone is doing that. Okay, no one will tell you that, no nations will tell that to you out loud, but it's definitely something that everyone is doing. I'm going to give some examples which are not in a critical infrastructures examples because it's easier and it's obvious that the critical infrastructures in Israel has been attacked, probably from the very first day. Again, like I said, most of them has, more than 90% of them has been blocked successfully, but there are that succeeded. Those that succeeded were not in the critical infrastructures. They were in the different places, different organizations that actually provided quite a good information and data for our enemies. Law firm. In law firm, or in hospitals, or in accounting firms, has been attacked and successfully gained access to a lot of data, which is proprietary data for critical infrastructures, not directly attacking the critical infrastructures, but attacking other suppliers which have the same data accessible. So imagine that I can attack one of the law firms that represent EDP, and getting the same data that EDP has in their systems, but getting it from other suppliers or counterparts or people that are working, or companies that are working with EDP. And this is the idea behind having an intelligent mindset rather than just banging your heads through the walls, which doesn't make any sense to anyone. So this is a few examples, and yes, there were successful attacks on Israel, on law firms, on accounting firms, on billboards in the highways, hospitals that have been attacked, and they took all of the records, and they blocked those hospitals, and so on. So it's not just a direct attacks on critical infrastructures, but also surrounding and supporting areas. So, and again, it's not my quote. It's the former FBI director that says that out loud and very clear. The assumptions that all of us needs to work on is it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And again, we need to ask ourselves as Israel if on the 7th of October we did that in the right way, or the strategy was in the right way. And this is a question mark that will go quite a lot, and we will ask ourselves quite a lot. So there are a few more attacks that I can share with you. Iran targeted a lot of database databases that actually stored outside of Israel in other places and not in very secure areas in Israel, which allow them to get a lot of information about the procedures that Israel is working on. And I will give one example for you guys to go home thinking of. They decided to run a few fake forest fires in different places in Israel to follow and to see what are the procedures that Israel is doing, the emergency forces, forces are doing in Israel, and what are the procedures, and what is the policy, and how they are approaching a forest fire. Like, now everyone will say here, what is the connection between a forest fire, the fire departments, the firefighters going out and putting a fire down versus cybersecurity? It's 100% related. You can see the procedures, you can see the policies, you can see the way that they act, the way that they work, which systems they are using, what database they are using, which forces they are calling, how they are calling one and each other. And all of that has been done a few years before the 7th of October. From Israel's perspective, we thought it's a real, authentic forest fire that someone needs to put down. We were aware that there is someone that's watching and writing everything. Again, the mindset of intelligence. That's the thing that I would like you guys, again, to go back over and over and think about. We believe, and everyone believes, it's not a big secret, that this will be the next military conflict, war, whatever you want to call it, between China and Taiwan and the rest of the alliance between both sides. Unfortunately, we are in this war, and unfortunately for us in the Middle East, we are still in this war, and we believe that in the next few years we will see a military conflict. We don't know what scale and what size between Taiwan and China, which includes Japan, which will probably include the US and other territories. If you guys will go to Japan, you will see that they are moving their factories out of Taiwan. They are moving their factories and their chain of supply out of Taiwan because they are very much rely on a lot of factories that they built in Taiwan. And the global economy is more or less based on those factories. And we are seeing that, we believe that will be the tip of the iceberg that everyone will see. But in the last few years, everyone is dealing, trying to protect their critical infrastructures. Once that will happen, everyone is preparing for that. And the last thing that I would like to mention in that point is the public service order. The order of the public services is something that is very vulnerable because it has to be accessible to all of the public, 100%. But from the other hand, it's also something that will be the very first targets for the enemies to target and to attack and to try to jam or to disrupt, because that will cause it will cause a problem with the public order, and from there, they will not rely on the government or the regime, which will cause them more and more problems. The second thing that I would like to mention is the GPS jamming. We experienced that on ourselves. And you're more than welcome to come to Israel. When you will go to Israel, you will see that Waze is not working in a big parts of Israel. There is a lot of GPS jamming all over Israel, in the north side and in the south side. And this is a very basic service that today everyone is using in the last few years. But if you want to navigate and you are not familiar with the territory, I wouldn't rely on GPS those days in Israel. It's not something that works, or at least it's not reliable. And those are very basic services that us today we are working on or based on our daily life, and it's not working anymore. So this is one thing that I would like to a few things that I would like to emphasize. I don't have a lot of time, unfortunately, but if you guys would like more and more things to know about what is going on regarding the cybersecurity, either the preparations, the execution, and post-execution, which is not less important than the preparation and the execution phases themselves, more than happy I will be here around here and more than happy to share with you more insights and more information about those kind of things. But the most important, at least from my perspective, is to take care of the human factor, is to take care of the workforce, to make sure that everyone is in the right skills, the right mindset, the right maturity of awareness, and to understand that even though everything looks very peaceful, and everything looks very calm, in the cyber world, it's not the same way. I can quote one of the prime ministers that says that the cyber domain allowed us to continue and fight even during a ceasefire. If you will think about it, you will see that even if you guys, Portugal does not have a direct military conflict with Russia, I can promise you that you have a cyber warfare between Russia and Portugal, and between Russia and NATO, and between Russia and the rest of the Western world. It's not a secret. It's not behind the scenes. It's something that exists and works all the time. So the only way that you guys, we will be able to protect ourselves and our nations, on top of a good technologies to put in place, on top of procedures and policies, effective ones, mindsets, like I said at the beginning of the presentation, the manpower. And again, it doesn't matter if it's the shareholder, a very rich guy, a very powerful guy, or the last man in the chain. Everyone needs to have a mindset or the right skills or the right level of knowledge and experience to be able to protect themselves and their organizations against cyber attacks. So that's in a nutshell, in a very, very, very fast presentation on some ideas and some insights that you guys can take with you back home. And again, more than happy to share with you more details and information after the conference or after the presentations. Thank you very much for waiting until this time. Thank you.